Hello, Auroraverse! Today marks the first day that we'll be getting the newsletter series for the likes of the MMORPG in D&D 5e, known as Project Aurora. Here you'll be able to keep up with all things relating to the project in a video format that will be able to explain everything that you need to know to keep up to date. Without further explanation, let's talk about what exactly has been happening in the Auroraverse. This week in Project Aurora marked the beginning of the staff team being formed. From going through the likes of 140 applicants, we were eventually able to narrow it down to about 60 members. With 8 project leads of differing departments, 10 dungeon masters, 11 lore masters, 8 homebrewing engineers, 16 artists, 9 map makers, and 4 music composers with 1 social media manager, the Project Aurora staff is really shaping up to be a powerful team. In fact, the team actually started to take initiative and actually start introducing themselves without even having the first official meeting. They wanted to get to know each other and introduce themselves and their types of styles of how they create content, from either making maps, how they draw, or how they dungeon master. Also, hey, if you're watching this video right now, it would help us out if you actually leave a comment or like below if you'd like to see more and more of these sort of video format and newsletters. It really does help us out, and it lets us know that, hey, that you like what we're doing here. For the first week getting underway, I decided to take it upon myself to contact every single lead director and hand out different tasks for each team to tackle to sate their appetite to really get started on the project. With everybody really ambitious and really wanting to get started as soon as possible, I figured this would be a good way to exercise team building, to practice, and to be able to understand how everyone works, especially before everything gets underway. The Dungeon Masters were tasked with explaining their DMing styles and their preferences when it comes to being a Dungeon Master, so an understanding was had between all 10 of them. The Lore Masters were tasked with writing an excerpt on Erebos, the god of the dead, in the Theros setting. This task was helped to design stuff that players would actually find in the likes of the MMORPG. The Homebrew team, however, was actually tasked with making and designing homebrew items based on the god of death themselves. The art team was actually tasked with designing simple concept of either elves or forest landscapes to really get in tune with nature. Cartographers kept with the theme, however, of the dead and were tasked with making a forest or even a spooky graveyard. And finally, the music composers were tasked with making 10-second to 1-minute composed pieces of fantasy music that would actually immerse everyone into a potential setting. Also, as a side note, hey, if you guys really want to support what we do here for Project Aurora, the best way to probably do so is to join the likes of the Discord and also to support us on the Patreon. If you want to support SenseiSuplex and all that he does, consider dropping over towards the Patreon, as you can get exclusive access to either the meetings themselves, infographics and newsletters to really keep you up to date, and many other ways to be able to get yourself involved with this massive undertaking. Heck, you can even be a player at certain tiers in the Patreon, but that's only for my games, not necessarily for everyone else's. With the D&D community hungry for the likes of the first meeting of Project Aurora, the date had finally been set. The meeting itself was to construct the outline of the Project Aurora setting, featuring the Dungeon Master and the Lore Master team taking the reins. Without revealing too many details, the setting would be created using a ping-pong method created by the likes of myself, Chaotic and Ryder, Narth, and Max Fish. As we would refer to this method as the ping-pong method, or the tennis method, either or works. As these ideas would be ping-ponged between the two teams of the Dungeon Masters and the Lore Masters until a setting outline was finally created and ready to be presented to the public. It was also announced that the Dungeons and Dragons community and Project Aurora staff would be able to come together to be able to finally ultimately decide the setting of this MMORPG, and which setting would be created over the course of several months. With massive things in Project Aurora coming to fruition, the TTRPG community is changing for the better. The Auroraverse is leading the charge, but the question is, will you join us? Choice is yours. And with that, my friends, you are finally caught up to date with Auroraverse Week 1. We look forward to seeing you in Week 2 of the New Beginnings.